waste my life. I don't wanna waste my time. I don't wanna waste my life. Living in this world. It's just some things, there's no going back. You know what I'm saying?
jwoodbeats.com.
Yeah, I'm not the one with the issues. I hear you. Now here is your tissue. If I'm moving too fast, I might have to dismiss you. And it's really too bad, cause I really will miss you. But I'm not the one with the issues. I left him at church when I made it official. I murdered the curse with my own benediction. Left God in the dirt, call it death of the fiction. Superstition will be served an eviction. Competition will be left in the ditch. Oh my God, it's too damn hot in this kitchen. The fishes of men are now swimming with fishes. Oops, my bad, I guess I'm moving too vicious. Verses sold, I gotta put them on your wish list. Bless my soul, cause I'm dodging your little hit list. I guess you know, you just lost another witness.
Gotta let me go. Gotta let me go. Gotta let me go. Gotta let me go. Gotta let me go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to this Sunday evening. Man, I hope y'all are excited. This is part 2 of this, what I'm calling a content creation masterclass at this moment. If you missed part 1, I will encourage you to go back and watch it. I do believe that I dropped that link in the description. There was so much incredible information shared that is absolutely going to be helpful. And, this is, I'm so glad that we're actually doing this type of stuff. These are the types of conversations that need to be had. And so I want to pull your attention while you're coming in. Listen, if you haven't already, make sure to like the stream, hit the subscribe button, hit the alert notification bell. I'll say it plenty of times throughout, but while you're coming in, go ahead and do that. And one of the best things you can do, because I'm sure you want to have a lot of fun with other people in the chat. You want some stimulating conversation out right now. It's not. All right. You want people to ask some things that maybe you didn't think about so that we can all get some answers to our questions. So if you haven't already, share this stream. Now, we do have a poll in the chat. We have a poll in the chat. For those of you who are watching on Facebook, you might have to jump on YouTube to check out the poll. But there is a poll, there's a survey, and the question is, where are you in the content creation journey? There are 4 options. Are you A, not interested, which so far nobody has chose that yet? Are you B, just getting started, which 67% of the people who voted so far have said that, yeah, that's where I am. So that's the majority. Or are you C, actively making content often, and that's where 33% of you are. I'm sorry, 50. It just went up. It's 50-50 now. 50% of you are just getting started. 50% of you are actively making content often. And then I also threw this other one in there that is, or are you just wanting to help someone else? Because please understand, that's a need too. Maybe you're not a person who wants to be in front of the camera, but you want to help make a difference. That's a real need. So maybe you were thinking about clicking, well, not really interested, but then you thought about it and said, oh man, there's so many great content creators out here who I know are having to do all of this back end work. It would be really great if I could pick up some skills and partner with one of them or help them. So that this thing throughout the whole live and to really see where we are. And I see so many of you in the chat already. Deep as hell, Dr. Troy. Nice to see you here tonight. Creator of content here. Love it. Ryan Coltastic is in the chat. How beautiful. As always, man, as y'all are coming in, let us know where you're watching from. Let us know what you're excited about, because this is going to be good. All right. Do I have any announcements for anybody that's coming in? Oh, yes. Bridge City Weekends. Now, I don't know if I have any moderators here tonight to drop links in the chat, but there's links. So first, Bridge City Weekends, right? We've been talking about this for a while. We finally gotten recalibrated after taking a blow. So we have a new website up, and that website is really long, but it's bridge.dldd.us/bcweekends.php. All right. But we're going to be everywhere. And so we'll make sure we get that link in before the end of the night. So that if you're interested in bringing the Bridge City experience to where you are, to your local city, this is the way to let us know that you're interested. This is how we can continue to build that interest. You can be a part of our email list and a part of monthly virtual meetups that we'll be putting together as we grow interest in those local cities. So that is super exciting. And then just speaking of which, while I'm here, Bridge City, we've updated our website as well, just our website, where anybody has questions and you want a place to send them, bam, bridge.dldd.us. You can send them there. It was recently updated. It's absolutely beautiful, if I must say so myself. All right. Let me make sure. I think those are my big announcements. Okay, we had some more votes come back in. So we're out of the 50-50 and we're back at the point where we're at 67% for just getting started, which means you're in the right place. If you're in here and it's at you're in here and you're just getting started, you're part of that 67%, you're in the right place. There's going to be some helpful information shared for you. And of course, also, if you're part of that 33%, where you say I'm actively making content often, then hey, you're going to find something good here as well. All right, so I think I've said enough. Y'all ready to jump into this? I'm going to pull Jason up because I know he's ready to talk. I hope y'all are excited. God dang, I am. Hey, if I didn't say this already, share this stream. Let's make sure we can get this in front of as many people as possible. Jason, man, welcome back. Oh, that drink looks good. Man, welcome back, man. Feeling.
Hey, thanks for having me on again. It's always a pleasure to come and hang out with you.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Now, I know we had a long conversation last time and talked about quite a bit, man. Would you like to recap a little bit just what some of our big points was last time? I know one of the big takeaways that I had that was really helpful, because I've been struggling with figuring out what do I need to purchase as I'm working to kind of focus on my sound my sound absorption. It is that I'm looking for when I'm just searching through Amazon. But the moving packet, the moving blankets, I was like, holy snap, because that is what most of these things are. So that was incredibly helpful. But just to kind of give us a recap before we jump into part two, would you mind hitting some of those highlights from last time?
Yeah, so one of the big things that we covered is that your recording space matters more, and a great deal more, than the gear that you're using to record, because a good microphone can only capture good audio if you're presenting good audio. If your audio is bad, a good microphone will capture that bad audio and it will sound bad every time. So you're going to have good, clean audio, and much of that is going to come from your recording space. This means picking a quiet room and doing what you can to not only soundproof that room so that outside noises don't get in, but also acoustically treating that room so that your voice doesn't bounce around and give it a weird, echoey, airy quality to your sound. That way, your microphone can then do its job and record the audio that you're presenting. And so we went over a few different solutions for that: how to prevent those outside noises from coming in, and how to also arrange your setup, where in the room to be and what to put up around your room to kind of deaden that noise, so that after your voice passes the microphone and it gets picked up, it just dies and it doesn't come back and create interference, create this weird echoey quality. So that was one of the big things, because your audio quality matters more than your video quality, and your recording space is the major contributor to good or bad audio quality. So definitely, if you have not watched that first video, you want to go back and check that out, because any of the gear that we recommend here is only going to do so much toward helping you achieve a good quality piece of audio. And the rest of it is going to come from your setup, how you arrange things, how you, the room you select and how you treat that room. So skip the $400 microphones and go straight into making your room sound good, and then worry about recording things. And another thing that we touched on was the importance of lighting, because lighting, a good camera will capture a bad image if you're presenting that. And just as the sound treatment in your room matters a great deal to your audio quality, the quality of your lighting contributes to your video quality. And so those are the two biggest things: good acoustic treatment in your room and good lighting. And then after that, that's when you start getting into buying, these various pieces of kit. And so really the foundation isn't gear, it's knowledge. It's a basic understanding of what you need to do to generate good quality image and audio so that your gear can then pick that up. And so that was the main takeaway from the first video.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And y'all will notice I have switched cameras for a moment to see if that's changing some things. And so we'll see, because I noticed there was a delay and a lag, and we'll see if we're picking back up now. All right. So that was a very good catch up of where we were and how we got here. And again, like I ended up having to leave that one a little early. So we were still just getting into the heat of things. And so again, a major thing is choosing your space, getting that good space, and then treating that space, and understanding how sound impacts that space. Understand, like now you see I switched cameras. So everybody, you also see how lighting just dynamically shifted in here. I actually had to just cut off one of my lights. Otherwise, you can see half of my face is washed out and the other half is shadow. And that's just switching mics. I mean, switching cameras. But also shows how lighting. Yes.
Yeah, and yeah, I've got 3 lights in here, and if I turn off any one of them, it makes an impact. There is a noticeable difference if I change any of these lights. And my lights aren't expensive. I have cheap lights. They're some little off-brand I found on Amazon. I've been using them for like 3 or 4 years. 5 years now. Yeah. Oh, did we lose Darante?
Wow.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Let me see. Am I here? Okay.
Yeah. There was a little bit of like a glitch, a little bit of a lag. So.
Oh man. All right. So let's lean into this a little bit. So we know how sound impacts our space. We know how lighting impacts our space. Tell us a little bit about where you want to lead us tonight.
So once you got that good understanding of how all these things work, then it's time to actually purchase some gear. And your foundation is all set. You're ready to start buying some gear. But then what do you buy? And if you look at some of these different tutorials and stuff on YouTube, what you're going to find is people telling you that for your audio, you need something like the Shure SM7B microphone, which is quite popular, especially in the home content creation space. But these are like a $400 microphone, okay? And that's going to really strain your budget. A lot of people are going to struggle to come up with $400 for that microphone, especially when they find out that you then have to connect that to an audio interface or a mixer, which is going to run you at least another $100. So now you're talking about $500 for this mic setup. But then if you do that, your audio is going to be really quiet. And because this microphone, it requires a thing called a cloud lifter to boost the gain to get, high enough volume. So that's about another $100. And they're talking like $600 just to record audio. Wow. But you don't need that. Okay. What you need is something that is at least good enough to get you started. And when I say that, I don't mean like, this is okay, it'll get you started, but you're going to kind of sound crappy and, you're going to sound like an amateur. No, what I mean is something that's going to get good, crisp audio and will take you through years of content creation, and it will sound good. And people who don't know, exactly what you're using will not guess that you're using something cheap. Yeah. And when I say cheap, I mean inexpensive, not poorly made. I'm not going to recommend anything to you that I would not personally use myself. I'm not going to recommend that you buy something that you're going to have to turn around and replace in a few months because it's falling apart. I'm only going to recommend good quality equipment that you can pick up on the cheap and will give a good quality to your content. It will be worth every penny that you invest, and it will carry you through years of content creation.
Wow.
So that's what I want to do today is to help you make those decisions in what to purchase. Now that you know how to set things up and how to use it, you now need to know what to actually buy.
Yeah. All right then. All right. So what are we buying tonight? And actually that Shure SM7, I've had someone mention that to me just recently. And it's like, oh man, your voice would go perfectly with this. And so I have seen that floating around. So where do we want to start? What do we want to buy? What is it that we need to get? What will you consider to be the most important piece of a content creator's deck or stack when they're first getting started?
So before I answer that, I would first like to address that Shure SM7B in your particular case. This is a great microphone. Okay. I'm not going to say it's not. It's a fantastic microphone, and it brings a really rich, vibrant warmth to your voice. And if you have a high-pitched voice, it'll tone that down and it'll make it sound a bit better.
Yeah.
You have the exact wrong voice for that microphone.
Man.
Like, you know those cheap hoopty rods people would get, and they put these like 18-inch speakers in them. It's pure bass. They've got a massive amp, and they roll down the road, and you just hear all the screws rattling loose. You can't hear anything in their music. You just feel the vibration. That's what your voice is going to do if you use that microphone, Darante.
Wow.
That is the wrong
rattle.
mic for you.
Yeah.
It adds some mid-tones and some bass, and you don't need that.
No.
You naturally have it. You lucky bastard. You don't need that mic. That's the wrong mic for you.
Right.
If I were you, I would not touch that mic. That'd be $400 plus the accessories you need for it, and you're not going to get any value out of it. Yep. A more neutral sounding microphone would be what I would recommend. I'd recommend something like the Audio-Technica AT2020 or AT2040 if you wanted to spend $100 on a mic. Though if you wanted to get good sound and to spend less money, I would say the Behringer XM8500 for $14.
Whoa.
It's going to sound really good, especially with your voice, because you already have that rich depth and warmth to your voice. You don't need a microphone to add that.
Wow.
So,
I didn't realize Behringer had mics in that price range.
They have several. The XM8500 you can't find on Amazon, but they do have some other like $15 range mics that you can find on Amazon. But if you go to something like B&H Photo, Sweetwater.com, Guitar Center, anything like that, you can get those mics there. And like I said, they all have them for $13.90.
Oh, that is
beautiful. And this is a great mic. They're not going to look fancy on camera. It's going to look kind of goofy, but they're a fantastic mic. They deliver good quality sound. They're going to last you forever. And if you're going to one of those three places I just mentioned, the customer service and the return policy on all three places is fantastic, especially through Sweetwater. I purchased a bunch of stuff from Sweetwater, and I had a rep call me back 2 weeks later to ask if I needed help setting it up.
Oh, that is awesome.
Like an actual human being. It wasn't like a bot. And then a month later, they called me to ask if everything was still going okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Sweetwater's awesome. But no, as far as like what you should get, did you want to cover... So we talked about acoustic tiles and some of the soundproofing stuff earlier. So we could talk about lighting.
Yes,
let's get some. Let me find the exact one that I'm looking for. I remember in the first video we did have some links down in the description. I don't know if we have them this time around. But if you were to go on Amazon and look for Neewer LED lights or LED light panels, and that's Neewer. One of the things you're going to find, it's going to be a 2-pack of these little square light panels. It's a little LED rectangle, about yay big. It plugs into a USB port, and it's adjustable. I think it has like 2 or 3 different like kind of like light temperatures. Like, do you want it warm or do you want it cool? And then you can also adjust the brightness of it, and just simple, click up, click down, or turn it off. And that's actually what I use. Those are the lights that you're seeing coming in from the left and right side.
Oh,
and
wow.
they're $35. I've been using these
Man.
for like 5 years, and you can just get one USB charging brick that has 2 ports, plug them both in, and you're set. And then you just, you direct one of them at one side of your face, the other at the other side. You adjust your brightness until you get it where you want it, and you're good.
Yes.
And that right there that's going to take care of your lighting for you. Now, obviously, if you are in a larger space or you have multiple people, this may not be the best setup for you. But
Yeah.
for a single individual, especially if you're in a relatively small space, this is going to be more than enough.
Wow.
And if you need something larger, there are others like this that are just a little bit bigger, where the panels are maybe like 2 or 3 times the size, and you're looking at maybe $50 or $60 for a pair of them.
Oh, man.
And there you go. You're all set. And this will give you that good, dynamic lighting. It'll make you look more 3-dimensional. That's
Yes.
why I don't recommend using a ring light, because it lights everything exactly the same, and it's coming from your camera.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you just look flat. It's
Yep,
like if
yep.
you look at a photo of a person that like a professional photographer took, and then you go and take the same photo but just use the flash on your camera.
Yes.
It looks drastically different. That's what a ring light's going to do. Those are good for makeup tutorials. That's it. Anything
Yeah.
else, like don't use it for pretty much anything else, okay? Because they're not good for content creators.
Wow.
So something like that. The newer light panels, like I said,
Man.
they're $35 on Amazon. You can't beat that. They mount onto they'll mount onto like a basic tripod screw. So
Okay.
I think it's like a 1/4-inch screw. I think that's
Yeah.
the size. And there's a ton of stuff you can get. Like you can get these little arms that you can mount pretty much anywhere, and then attach. Basically, it's like a little clamp that has a tripod mount on it, like the little head. And so you can put that on there and then screw the light directly on top of it.
wow.
So, you can take them off. They come with stands, but you can take them off those stands and mount them on other things to position them however you want.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's like a really convenient thing about them. So that's one reason I recommend these. Also, they're cheap.
Yeah, I like cheap.
Yeah, they're cheap, but like I said, I've been using mine for about 5 years. So
That's incredible. Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, like as far as lighting, like that's it. Just a 2-pack of LED panels that are adjustable. You want to be able to change the brightness. People are gonna. Okay, there are other options you can get. There are these big lights with these giant soft boxes, which is this. It looks almost like this big umbrella thing
Yes.
with this mesh inside it, and it diffuses the light. You can get that, okay? And if you want to go out and spend several $100s on lighting, hey, do it. It's your thing. But if you're just getting started, that's probably not the best way to go for 2 reasons. One, you're going to have trouble getting all this stuff set up and not tripping over it, okay? And you're going to spend almost as much on mounting equipment as you do on the lights. The other thing is, how long are you actually going to be doing this?
Yeah.
Because most people who start making content only make it for a couple of months. Like audio format podcast, something like 90% of audio format podcasts have fewer than 6 episodes.
Wow.
And actually, I think it's closer to like 95. Yeah, and look at YouTube channels. You think, oh, look at these channels. They've got like 1,000 episodes and stuff. But how many thousands of channels do you not see that only have 1 or 2 episodes?
Absolutely.
There's a lot, okay? The algorithm doesn't show them to you, but they're out there. There are people that have $1,000 worth of lighting and camera equipment that they use like 3 times. So don't break the bank on this stuff. You can always upgrade this stuff later, but start off with $35 in lighting. Don't spend more than that.
That's good. That is good. That is good. And it looks like we have a super sticker. Thank you, Ryan Coltastic, $1.99. I appreciate you so much. And I will use this as a reminder to let everybody know that if you're not doing anything in the morning, grab you a cup of Joe and join us for the Daily Atheist Morning Show. Yes. All right. And just that, thank you for sharing with us the lightings from Newer, because just that idea of having them be adjustable, right? So much of the brightness you're seeing right now is because between two of the cameras I have to switch the location of where these lights are, or I have to adjust it manually adjust the brightness manually in the camera setting. So if these, and I'm just using bar lights, I actually didn't spend anything on them. They are leftovers from my old shop from my other garage. So they're literally just shop lights that I have looked up. Normally when I'm using this camera, I have them on the other side of the room because they're so bright. But when I'm using my Elgato, I can bring them in much closer because my Elgato has much better control. But as you can see now, man, if I just had the simple ability to dim these, to increase or decrease the brightness. And I didn't even know, and I feel slow for not knowing this because I should, but I didn't even know they were making the light panels like that now. That makes the most sense in the world, because that is the point. The whole point of having that big umbrella thing is to diffuse the light, and to keep so much of it from hitting you. And essentially a dimmer is doing the same thing. So yes, if I can get that for cheaper, I want that. And I get to keep my space.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Man. All right. So let's, so as far as lighting now, I know I've heard some people talk about a 3-point lighting system. People talk about having ambient lighting or and things of that nature. And then sometimes you do see some podcast studios where they have the extra LEDs or like purple or blue going on in the background. I don't want to necessarily ask how necessary is that, because that answer is easy. It's probably not very necessary at all. But what's the rationale there? What is the need for having these additional lighting? Is that helping with something with dimension, or is it just aesthetic? Is it just having something pretty to look at?
So as far as the 3-point lighting, that's definitely going to give you more dynamic lighting. It's going to make you stand out from the background more. It's going to make you look better. And what 3-point lighting is, you have what's called a key light, and this is your main light that's illuminating your face. Then you have a fill light, and that's the light that comes in from the other side, and it softens up the shadows. And then the third light is typically up and behind you, and they call that a hair light, is usually what they call it. And it just comes in, it kind of highlights sort of like the back of your head, and that helps, it's like the little silver lining around the dark cloud. It makes you stand out a little bit from whatever's behind you. Now, I don't need anything to make my head shine, okay? I use turtle wax, so I don't need a hair light. Also, for me, a hair light would have to be like down below, shining up on my beard. Ooh, and my beard is amazing enough already. I don't need to show it off anymore, okay? So mainly I just use like 2 different lights. I think that works fine with me. And for most people, that's going to work. If you want to do a third light, it's like a little hair light, it looks amazing. And it's one of those things, you don't notice it until it's not there, and then it feels like something's missing. Okay.
Ooh,
and then, and when it pops back up, it's like, I like that. So yeah, that is definitely something you're going to get something out of it if you're using multiple light sources to illuminate the subject. Now, if you are talking about the lights that are in the background, they can serve a purpose. So a lot of people, they have like a really dark background, But if you do that, then what's going to happen is your background is going to kind of just get darker and darker as your camera adjusts to the lighting of the subject. And everything in the background is just going to kind of fade away. It's going to look like you're in a cave or something. You won't really have anything in the background. It'll just be a floating head in the darkness. So you put light in the background to make parts of the background stand out and to kind of illuminate it back there so it doesn't look like you're inside of a cave. And also, if you do it right, it can help make you sort of stand out because you have this darkness, but then you also have this light behind you that illuminates certain parts. If you look just over this shoulder, you'll actually see the effect of it when I remove the background light. This is just a little desk lamp that I bolted to my wall, and I've just got like a little switch that I can reach down with my right hand and click it. It's just a little directional lamp. It was like, I don't know, $10 at Walmart. And I just bolted it to my wall and I aimed it kind of up and back, and that's what it does. It kind of illuminates it, and it kind of shows off like the three-dimensional nature of my little acoustic tiles back here. You can see like the little highlight on the underside of them, on those little bevels. So you actually get some functionality out of that. Okay. But then some of it is just there for aesthetic value. Like you'll have like a pink light on one side and a blue light on another. And functionally, does it do anything? No.
Yeah.
But as decoration? Yeah. And it makes the thing just look cooler. It makes it look more interesting. And if your recording space looks more interesting and it's pleasing to the viewer, then functionally that is doing something. Okay?
That's good, yeah.
Because aesthetic, we see, this isn't really functional, it's aesthetic. But aesthetics can be functional because if it makes your viewer feel more comfortable, or if it makes your viewer feel that your production is more professional, you're getting value out of it.
Absolutely.
That is functional. So, maybe it's just aesthetics, but it's also functional. And as far as that, how necessary is it? It's your show. You get to decide that. Is it something you need? And here's a great thing. If you get those cheap little newer lights and then later you upgrade to, something bigger and better, you can take these and you can buy these little like colored gels that slide in front of them, and you can set them up in the background, and you get to still use these $35 lights that you bought for something else. You can have them highlight decorations behind you. You could put up a cool little sculpture or something and then have one of these cheap newer lights hidden somewhere where it can shine on the thing and give it some nice dramatic lighting. Yeah. So
I like that. That's good. No, and that kind of brings to mind a question that I have is, how do you balance your viewer feedback? I'm sure that it comes in. How do you balance what's constructive and critical and what's just critical and critical? Or if you do that, do you use any of your viewer feedback to give you input into how to set up what's important, what matters to them, and what they're kind of looking for?
So right off the bat, if the stuff comes in and it's just negative, ignore it.
Yep. I like it.
Blanket statement right there. Ignore it. Now, if they're coming in and someone is off, hey, I noticed this. Maybe, you could try this. If they're trying to offer some kind of solution, okay, look at that feedback. Does it have merit? It could just be a person who sees something and they think maybe it could be another way. There's no bad intent there. They're legitimately trying to help. Yeah. Look at what they're addressing, and then go back and look at your content and say, is this actually something there? Like, should I address this? Because maybe it is. Maybe it's something that you didn't notice before and you could fix it. Maybe there's a really harsh shadow on one side of your face and you never noticed it before because the monitor you're looking at is a bit brighter than what they're seeing. And when you look at it from a normal screen, all of a sudden you can see it. Hey, that's a legitimate thing. And that feedback is valuable. And you can say, okay, let me go to this light and click it up a notch. And that fixes the problem. So when people bring you something, listen to what they're saying. Like, if it's positive in nature, listen to what they're saying. Don't take it personally. Some people say that all constructive criticism is, just bullshit. No, it's not. People are legitimately trying to help you. And the only way you're going to get better is if you learn to take positive feedback and implement it. Okay. And look at it. If it's something that you agree with, implement it. The other thing is, if a lot of people are saying the same thing, if a lot of people are saying, hey, there's this echoey quality in your recent recordings. Okay, if you're getting that from 4, 5, 6 people, you need to listen to those recent recordings. Did you do something wrong? Did you accidentally apply some weird echo filter and you didn't notice?
Yeah.
Go and check that out. Okay. Yeah. But at the same time, you don't want to go and worry about every single thing that people say, because you will never be able to please everyone. Okay, so if it's addressing something that is potentially having a negative impact and you agree with it, address it. If multiple people are saying it, you definitely want to consider that. Yeah. If it's just negative, or if it's just one person and you're not quite seeing it or not quite seeing the value of changing it, then ignore it.
Yep. Man, I love that. And that's, that's pretty much my approach as well. I do have, you kind of look at the tone that people bring towards it. Is this a thing where someone is saying, I'm not going to watch this because of this? Or is this someone saying, listen, I'm really trying to enjoy this, and this is either a distraction or I'm trying to find a way to enjoy this, and this is hindering that. And I do lean more to those who come that way, those who approach and are like, man, I'm really trying to enjoy this, but damn, that dinging in my ear is killing me. I love what you said, but that dinging is killing me. And I'm like, okay, this person is not being a jackass. They're literally telling me, I am enjoying your content, but that ding is not vibing for me. And then, of course, if I hear anybody else says that, guess what? On the next video, you don't hear a ding. But you get a lot of that, and so it's always kind of being mindful of what those people are bringing, and like you said, realizing that it's not personal. Everybody, some people are just being jerks. Some people are they have their issues. One of the things that I just kind of live in is just like me putting myself in front of a camera doesn't mean that I become everything you need me to be. I don't have that superpower. So I don't exist for other folk, and so I don't expect myself to. We did have a question in the chat, and I saw we just got a super chat. I do want to hit this question real quick because it's from Ryan, and I'm a fan. And Ryan said, do you think more plain backgrounds are better?
Yeah, so as far as your background, you can do like a plain background. You can have a bunch of decorations. You can do all sorts of things. And what you really want to do is you want your background to have something in there to kind of make it interesting. I try to avoid just a flat color. At the same time, you don't want it to be distracting. You don't want your background to take away. Okay. If it's not adding to the show, it's not serving its purpose. So if you have something back there and it's distracting people and people are focusing more on what's behind you than on what's being said, then that's a problem and you need to address it. At the same time, if it's too plain, then it makes it look more cheaply done. And that kind of does the same thing. It kind of distracts from. It's like, why don't they have something back there? And when I say something back there, I don't mean that you have to have, a whole bunch of, paintings on the wall or, all sorts of things. Like you don't have to have a bunch of, cool looking acoustic tiles on one side and, this weird theological watercolor on another. But if you take a couple of those directional lights and you have them shining up behind you on the wall, and those directional lights are different colors, like you have a red one and a blue one or something, and you have a sort of light gray background, that can look pretty cool. Yeah. And so there's no decorations, but it looks interesting. Okay, just you don't want to be boring. The main thing is don't be boring. Whether it's visually, whether it's with your content, the thumbnails you make, don't be boring.
Yeah.
Okay, because there are plenty of boring channels out there, and no one pays attention to them. You want to catch people's attention. You want to present yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
And so playing can be really cool if you do it right. And it's one of those things, it's hard to explain exactly how, because these things are so subjective. But you could do a room where the whole thing is gray and make it look amazing just by having light going in the right direction. Or you can fill a thing up with all sorts of cool decorations and look really bad because it just looks cluttered.
Yes.
Look around at some different channels, see what they do, see how things are set up, and you'll kind of get a feel for it. And that'll give you some direction. And don't be afraid to change things up, especially if people say, hey, maybe your background needs a little something.
Yeah.
Listen to that, because maybe your background does.
Yep.
I
love it. I love it. And we did get a super chat, so let me hit this one. This is from Monkey at Typewriter, $5. Thank you, Monkey. I appreciate you. Said, almost didn't send. Feels like maybe I shouldn't support the birth of more internet content creators, but against my better judgment. Good show, guys. Thank you, Monkey. I appreciate you so much, man. You're amazing. Oh, awesome. All right, so this is good. Let me get kind of caught back up here. The Green Lantern Corps. Oh, that's funny. Oh yeah, I saw that. All right, so we're full into this so far, and I love this. You've given us some pretty good demonstrations, especially from this lighting angle. I think there's been a wealth of information here. Actually, some that I'm going to check out today. I actually have a newer teleprompter. I've not looked into their lighting thing, so I do want to look in that. So let me ask you this. Now, you have, as a content creator, done a decent job of getting your name out here. People recognize you. You have name recognition, brand recognition. You say Dragons and Genesis. People know who you are. You've been on shows with people like Derek Lambert with Myth Vision. You've been featured on Skeptic Haven. How does this happen for you? I know there are many people who are right now getting ready to start content creation, or they're already doing it. And their biggest fear is kind of like you said, I'm going to make one or two or three videos, and then nothing is going to happen. And then the equipment is going to sit to the side. So I guess I want to put two questions in here. How do you keep yourself motivated to start? Because it's not really realistic to expect to hit 500 subscribers within the first 3 months. So how do you keep yourself motivated when you're probably not getting very much traction in the beginning? And then how do you create content that actually stands out? How do you catch people's attention? I mean, honestly, it's a wasteland of options out here. You can, I mean, yikes, you can pick anything you want. How do you sustain your momentum when you're getting started? You bought some stuff, you got your little desk set up, you're ready. And how do you stand out? Like, because you're competing with a lot of people out here, and there are a lot of attention grabbing people out here who are really good at what they do. How do you enter this force as a newbie, as an unknown, and actually, get some attention for yourself?
All right. So as far as how do you stay motivated and keep the momentum, that's a thing you're going to have to figure that out by yourself. And one of the things that you need to understand from the beginning, like from, before day one, from before you even start creating anything, when you're still in the concept phase, is to understand that when you start, no one's going to know who you are.
Yep.
When you start, you're going to have a number of subscribers that maybe you can count on one hand.
Yeah.
And this is going to go on for a while. You're going to look at your download history, like your downloads for each week or each month. You can look at how many people have watched or listened to a single episode, and you're going to see 2-digit numbers up there. And it's going to be disheartening, especially when you see other people that maybe you feel aren't bringing, as good a quality content, have tens of thousands, and you're over here with tens, or maybe just 10. And that's going to feel like a kick to the stomach. And you're going to have to get through that, because that right there, that's the great filter. That's the thing that eliminates 90% of content creation.
Yeah.
Is that the first several months or year. That is, you're going to be over there like making this stuff and thinking, man, who am I making this for?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if anyone's watching. I don't know if anyone's listening. And you're going to go back and look at comments and not see any.
Yeah.
And you're just going to kind of feel like you're maybe sitting there just talking to an empty room. And sometimes you will be. And that's a thing you have to deal with.
Yeah.
Because that is one of the first steps to content creation, is creating content that no one gives a damn about.
Yep.
When I started, like a decade ago, my goal was to just do a sort of audio commentary on the book of Genesis. It was going to be about a dozen episodes covering that one book, and that was it. And I got about halfway through Genesis, and I'm looking at the downloads. I'm looking at my subscriber list, and like the first few episodes, you know how many subscribers I had after like 3 or 4 episodes?
Wow.
I had 2, and one of them lived with me. Like, think of that. Half of all the people who subscribe to my show in the entire world lived in my house. Yeah, like I had 2.
Oh, man.
It wasn't until I covered like Noah, so we're talking like episode 6, that I got into the double digits.
Yeah.
And I was like halfway through like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob before things kind of started to take off. And when I say started to take off, I meant like I had like 80 or 90 subscribers and was getting maybe 100 or 150 downloads a month.
Yeah.
That's nothing. That's nothing. But by the time I finished the book, I had people asking me if I was going to continue on to Exodus. And I kind of had to then, because these people that I didn't even know were there were suddenly asking for more.
Wow.
Now, of course, this took a year, because I was doing like an episode a month. Genesis started out to be like 14 episodes, and I missed a couple months. So we're talking like nearly 16 months before, so 16 or 18 months. So year and a half before I realized that maybe I should keep going.
Wow.
Yeah. So like, think about that. A year and a half to basically feel like you're just, shouting into the wind. You got to get through that part. Okay. Now, if you're doing interview shows and stuff like that, it's a bit different because you're talking to someone, but you still don't know if the two of you are talking to anyone. Okay. Because maybe there's no one there. It takes time. And that's what most people don't give it. That's the little X factor here. You have to spend the time, and you have to constantly be working to make it better. And then that kind of helps you go. And then you don't like just magically have this momentum. You make it. You have to push. Okay. You're not like, oh, it's this snowball and it just keeps on rolling downhill. No. You've got a car that's stalled out and you're pushing it, okay?
Yes.
And you're pushing it the entire time. And half the time you're pushing it uphill. That is what content creation is. It doesn't snowball and it's no, that's not how this goes. It's a lot of work And the reward is intangible. You're not going to make a ton of money off of it and become like this famous person. No, you're going to be just throwing stuff out there, spending money, and doing this stuff because you feel that it needs to be done.
Yes.
Now, how do you stand out? How do you compete with all these people? Because there are people out there who've been doing this for, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. People have been doing this for a while. How do you compete with that? You don't. Full stop. You don't. Because if you're going out trying to compete with someone who's been doing this for a decade, you've already lost. You picked the wrong thing. Okay?
Yep.
That's like me trying to play basketball against LeBron. What?
Yeah.
I can't compete. Like, that's stupid. You don't do it.
Yes. I love that.
No, you don't do that. When COVID hit and everyone's company was giving them webcams so that they could work from home and still attend email meetings that should have been an email, everyone was starting up YouTube channels.
Yep.
And in the atheist space, what did you have? You had 500 Matt Dillahunty clones.
Yes.
We've already got one Matt Dillahunty, and I think he does a pretty good job of being Matt Dillahunty. We didn't need a second one. We certainly didn't need a whole arena full of them. You know, we didn't have Stacy or her mom.
Yep.
We didn't have Darante.
Yay.
We didn't have Ryan.
Yes.
That's what we needed. We didn't have that. We got a bunch of Matt Dillahunty clones. We had a bunch of people doing street epistemology.
Yep.
Most of those channels don't exist anymore. That was just like 5 years ago.
Yes.
Okay. Don't try to compete. Don't try to do something that someone else is doing. Look at yourself and say, what is it that I have?
Yeah.
What is it that I can deliver? What do I have to say that no one else is saying? And that's what you do. You don't compete with anybody except for yourself from yesterday. That's who you compete with. You don't compete with another channel. That's how you lose.
Yes.
You find out what message you have. What do you want to say to the world? What do you want to add? If you're adding something that already exists, you're not adding anything.
Yeah.
What do you have that is unique? That is what you bring to the table, okay?
Yep.
Look, I have these big bonfires, in the colder months, and people bring all kind of food, and people say, okay, who's bringing what? And if one person's bringing a pot of chili, someone else doesn't come along with some chili.
Yeah.
And they certainly don't come along with a can of chili. No. They bring cornbread. They bring beer. They bring something else. What do you have?
Come on, man.
Actually, do you have some cornbread? Because that sounds good right now. What do you have to give? Okay. Like when I started my show, I could have done anything.
Yeah.
And what did I choose to do? A secular Bible study podcast that focuses on comparative literature and mythology that covers every single chapter of the book. Do you know who do you know who Dragons in Genesis competes with? Do you know what, in the audio format space, do you know what other show is doing that?
Man.
Nobody.
Yeah.
I am number one in my bracket because I am the only one in my bracket. I win by default. Yeah, maybe third from the bottom as far as how many people listen to a show, but I'm number one in my category because I'm the only one.
Yes, I love that.
I rule this little fiefdom.
Yes, come on.
Population one. Dude, don't compete with anybody.
Yes.
Deliver your show, your content, your message.
Yep.
And do it the best you can.
Man.
And you're number one in your category all the time. And if
All the
ever
time.
you look at your show and realize you're not number one in your category, that means you're backsliding. You're not progressing. You're not developing as a content creator. And you need to step up your game, because if you're not better than you were yesterday,
Yeah. Come on.
sell your equipment.
Oh, I love this. Come on
Compete
now.
with yourself. That's who you compete with. I don't compete with Derek Lambert. I don't go chasing after guests that he interviewed months ago and say, hey, can you come on my show? And I'm going to ask you the same questions he asked you.
Right.
You know, like, I don't interview that many people, but when I do, I want to interview people that I connect with, and I want to ask them questions that I have not heard on any of their interviews. And I will do that. I will look at 5 different interviews they've done.
Come on now.
And I'll say, oh, hang on, someone already asked that question, and I'll scratch it off.
Yes. Man, this is good. This is
Okay,
good.
because that question's been answered. So if I ask it, I'm not adding anything.
Yep.
That's a worthless question.
Man.
It may not be a dumb question, but it's a worthless one. Throw it away, ask a new question. So that's how you do that.
I like that. And so, like, there was a lot of good stuff there. And for those of you who are watching and listening, thank you so much for your support. This conversation it is incredible. And really, what you're hearing is, whatever it is, if you're thinking about making content right now and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, how am I going to stand out? Your key to standing out is not conforming, is not jumping on the latest trend. It's committing to do something that you're already excited about, and committed to do something that you would do if nobody was watching. People ask me today, like, Darante, how can you just have this much content back to back? I don't know, because these are the things that I'm thinking about when the camera's not on. These are the things that I'm writing about when the camera's not on. These are the things that are running through my mind. So when it's time for me to cut my camera on, when it's time for me to record, actually recording it is the hardest part for me. Figuring out what I'm going to talk about, that's not the hard part. That's what comes. I don't want to use the word natural, but that's what comes natural, because I'm not trying. I don't have to create a persona for my content. It's just me sitting in front of the mic doing what I do. And if you go back and watch, there's a video on my homepage that says, but why though? That's the thumbnail. And it's me kind of talking about this. Like, I do this to breathe. These are all the conversations that I've been having within myself over the years. Didn't have a place to really stretch those things out. And so, and just kind of tagging back to what Jason says here, that's where my motivation comes from. And I think that's what contributes to how I'm able to stand out in this space. I don't compete with anybody. I am uniquely me. My story is different. My background is different. What I bring to the space is different. What I want to bring to the space is different. What I want to talk about is different. What I want to do is different. And that's not because I'm special. It's because I'm different. And the difference is special. But the good news is you're different too. And so I do want to encourage people out there who are considering making content is just to avoid trends, right? If your motivation is, I'm doing this because it's the popular thing right now, give that a second guess. Now, it could be the thing for you, because sometimes the thing that's popular right now is the thing that you're passionate about. But at the same time, just always give that one a little second guess. Give it the side eye just to make sure, because that's what you're going to need. You're going to need that self-propelling there.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah. Don't try to stand above. Stand apart.
That's good. Yeah.
So now, once you get like the lighting and the acoustic treatment and stuff like that, you're gonna need to record this stuff.
Yes.
So as far as cameras go, I'm gonna give you guys like 3 different options. One is going to be like the first one, and the least expensive is going to be the Logitech Brio 101. It's a 1080 webcam. It'll just mount to the top of a laptop or something like that. You can also mount it to a tripod. And it's going to be just sort of like a basic webcam, but it's going to have better detail than most of the webcams that you find online in that price range. You're not really going to find anything for less than $50 that's as good as the things you're going to get from Logitech. They just make good webcams. So that right there, that'll get you started at $25. So that with the lighting, you're still looking at well below $100, and you're set to get online and start making videos. So check that out, the Logitech Brio 101. Like I said, Amazon, $25. Now, the thing it's not going to give you is that really cool depth of field where your background is kind of blurry, but you're in focus. You can't really see that on mine because I'm so close to my background, because I'm basically like right back in the corner. But if you're in a larger recording space, other cameras will do that. A webcam won't. But I will. There's a way you can fake it. And what you do is you get your place all set up, and then you get your camera, like your phone, and set it up about where your camera is going to be. Yeah. And then get your chair, move it out of the way, and use your phone to take a photo of your room behind you. And then bring it into something like Photoshop and apply a Gaussian blur.
Oh, yeah.
Not a lot, just a little. And then use that as your background. Basically do like the whole green screen thing and use tell it to apply that as your background. And so it's actually the room that's behind you. It just looks slightly blurry. And that could be a really cool way to get that effect until you can get a nicer camera.
That's
now,
smart.
To get that, to get a camera that just does that, you're going to have to spend a little bit of money. Okay, you're not going to get away with, $50 or $100. You're going to spend a few hundred. A webcam isn't going to do that. Now the second camera, and this is one that's going to be a little bit better, and this is the Elgato Face Cam. And these you can pick up for, I think, about $125 on Amazon. It's another one that just plugs into the USB port. I'm trying to remember what resolution it does. I know it at least does 1080. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. I know it does at least 1080, but it's going to give you better video quality than you're going to get from pretty much any other webcam. Like this is like top-notch webcam here. Like there are others out there, but instead of going through 50 different webcams, we're going to talk about two: a budget one and a higher tier one. So that'll be another option for you. So if you got a little more than $100 to spend on a camera, that'd be the way to go. Now, another thing you can do is you can use your phone as a camera. A lot of people don't realize this, but you can pair your phone with your computer, and your phone, your computer will basically just hijack your camera's, your phone's camera, and use that as the webcam. And I'll tell you, you're not really going to find much out there in the webcam market that compares with a decent phone. Any iPhone or any of the top end Samsungs that have come out in like the last 5 years are going to beat the pants off of any webcam on the market, because the cameras in those phones those are the best micro cameras in the world. There's a reason why Apple and Samsung are constantly in bidding wars against all the different companies that are developing those individual cameras so that they can get them. Okay. Yeah. The best micro cameras in the world are on phones, and you're going to find them on your top end Samsungs and your iPhones. If you've got one of those, pair it with your computer. You already have it. Don't go and spend $100 on an Elgato when you've got something better in your pocket. Just pair it to your computer and use that. There's little mounts you can buy that attaches to the top of a tripod, and it clamps onto a phone. You pop your phone in there, you frame it up, you get your stream going, and you're good. Just make sure it's also connected to a charger, because if you're in the middle of a stream and all of a sudden it goes out, no, you don't want that. So yeah, that's another option if you're going the webcam route. Now, if you want a larger camera, where you can have like interchangeable lenses, you can get that cool, I think it's called the bokeh effect, where you're in focus, but what's behind you is not. At that point, you have to get like a digital SLR or a mirrorless camera. And those, you can find some on eBay for maybe about $300 or $400. After that, if you want them new, you're looking at about $500 or $600, and then they go up from there to like $5,000. As far as used ones, I would check out some of the Sonys. Sony has some excellent digital cameras, especially the mirrorless cameras, and the autofocus on the Sonys is better than anyone else's. It's constantly adjusting the focus, and it does it really quickly and really smoothly, and so you don't realize it. Other cameras, like if you move forward or backward, there's this point where you're blurry, and then it suddenly snaps into focus, and it looks weird. And the Sonys don't really do that. It's much smoother and it's much quicker, and so you don't notice it. And like I said, you can pick up some of those used for a couple $100 on Amazon or on eBay. I'm trying to think of a specific Sony model to look for, but any of the Sony mirrorless cameras, those should work for you. If you want a new one, the cheapest one you're probably going to be able to find is going to be the Panasonic G7. Fantastic cameras. There's a ton of lenses for them. And you can also get this adapter that fits into the battery port to power the thing. So you don't have to worry about the battery running dead while you're using it. It just plugs into the wall and you're good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so those are cool. Those are going to run you about $500. But you can sometimes find those on eBay, because a lot of people bought those cameras and then later sold them and got something else. You can usually pick those up on eBay sometimes for as low as like $350. So check those out. Now, if you're using a mirrorless camera, though, instead of a webcam, you can't route it directly to your computer, because the signal that comes out of the little HDMI, it'll go to a monitor. So you could hook that up to like an LCD screen and have like a larger viewfinder for it. But your computer can't read that signal. You have to buy a thing called a capture card. Just go on Amazon, type in HDMI capture card, and you can find one. They're like, I don't know, $20. It's this little thing about yay big. HDMI port on one side, USB on the other. You run a cable from the HDMI output on your camera into the card, and then you take the card and you plug it into your computer, and now you get a good clean video feed directly from the camera. And that's all you need to do. And pretty much any wireless camera, any mirrorless camera, and most digital SLRs will do that. Though you have to watch out, because some cameras, when you turn them on, they'll turn off after a few minutes if you're not using it. So look online and like just type, can I use, camera X for streaming? And if you can't, someone's going to say, yeah, that camera turns off after 5 minutes or whatever. Though some of these cameras, you can disable that feature. So just be aware of that. Maybe go hit up Best Buy and try one out and see if that feature's in there. So, be aware of that. Now, if you're using a camera like that, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get your lights really bright. You're going to want to change the ISO to a really low number, like maybe 200. 400 will let you see in, a darker environment, but things can look kind of grainy. So you want to get it, to a You want to change your ISO to something like 200 or even 100 if you can get your lights bright enough. And then you also want to change your aperture to a really low number, like 1.2 or something like that. And what that's going to do, that's going to change your that depth of field. So your your focal depth. So your face will be in focus, but anything behind you will be blurry. Okay, if your aperture is at a higher number, like 22 or something like that, it'll be more like a webcam. Everything will look like it's in focus. And if you're doing that, what's the point in getting that camera? Don't spend $500 for everything to look like that. Just go and get the Elgato face cam for $125 and you get the same result. So if you're going to get a mirrorless camera, go in, set that aperture, turn that sucker way down, and that means you're going to have to manually set your focus. So before you get started, you're going to have to move the microphone out of the way and gently tap the button like you're going to take a photo, and it'll autofocus on your face, and then you can move your camera back into frame. If you don't, it's going to autofocus on your microphone. If you don't move it, you're going to just autofocus onto your mic, and then you'll be blurry and your microphone will look really nice. And hey, maybe that's good because maybe you're kind of ugly, and if you got a really sexy mic you're kind of a brown bag special, maybe you want a little bit of that blur on your face, you do you.
Oh man.
If you notice, my microphone is really in focus.
Oh man. No, I do have a quick question. Ryan put this in the chat, which I've run into this problem too, specifically with my Logitech camera, which is the one I'm on now. When there are certain spaces I can be, especially if there's more depth behind me, that camera will sometimes have problem adjusting. Mm-hmm. And so if I move the wrong way or something, the camera will start going in and out of focus or adjusting on its own. What do you do in these cases? If that's going on, like if you've never worked with webcams before, and you're sitting there and you're trying to record or stream and your camera's doing this to you, and what's likely happening there other than some type of mechanical deficit?
Okay. So if it's a mirrorless camera like mine, I can tell it that autofocus, the continual autofocus, which each camera company has its own term for it, but basically it's a continual autofocus where it's constantly trying to make sure that whatever's in the center of the frame is in focus. You can turn that off, and then you just gently tap the little shutter button. It'll autofocus on your face, and then you're good, and it'll stay at that. That focus will stay right there the whole time you're recording. And if I move around, I'll be out of focus because it's not going to readjust. I've turned that off on my camera. Now, if you have a webcam, really the only way to do that is for you to be front and center, well lit, and to not move around very much. Now, better webcams tend to not have this problem. And it's mainly because they've got software built in to kind of recognize faces and try to stay focused on you and to not accidentally focus on the background. Cheaper webcams aren't going to do that. So if you have an Elgato or a Logitech, you're probably going to be fine unless you move around a bunch. And if you move away from the center, it may just try to focus on whatever's behind you until you move back into the center of the frame. Mm. So if it's doing that a lot, try to be aware of what it is you're doing, because if you're moving back and forth and stuff while you're talking, that camera, it may be a camera that just tries to focus on whatever's in the dead center of the shot. Yeah. And if you move off center, it's now trying to focus on the wall back there. So either try to sit more still and make sure you are very well lit and your background is a little more dim, Or just put something really cool in the background so that when you move, people will look at whatever's back there and say, hey, that's a cool statue you got. No, don't do that. So yeah, that's unfortunately, like, especially cheaper webcams, sometimes they just do that. And if sitting still and being well lit is not fixing the problem, you may just need to get a different camera or use your phone.
Which I am a fan of the phones. The phones are awesome.
Yeah.
Actually, when I was still working in the church scene, quite a few churches were shifting much of their video operations to iPhones and Samsungs, so that they could have more cameras in their shows, in their services, without having to buy all of this other expensive equipment. And so they were linking their iPhones or their cell phones to their systems and getting all types of incredible shots, because obviously these are now smaller as well, so they're easier to move around. So yeah, that's awesome to hear somebody speak to. It's something that I haven't thought about in a while. And I actually do have a Samsung, which has an incredible camera. But yeah, so that's good. Okay, now, so before we move away from cameras real quick, now I had my Logitech camera for about a year before I ever realized that I could have actually downloaded software from it, which is what I really need to be doing now. I need to be in the software doing some adjustments. But is that an important thing? Is that a thing? Like if you do have one of these webcams, whether it's a Logitech or a Elgato face cam, how important is it for the person to be kind of jumping into some of those manual settings that are available through the software?
Yeah, that can actually be very important. Some of these things, if you've got like your lighting and setup done well, then the auto features are going to take care of you. But if you know how to get into the software, go into the settings on your camera or your microphone and tweak these things, you can often get a significant improvement in quality, because sometimes, these things are often set up for a certain type of environment. So a webcam, it's set up for a mom sitting at a computer to talk to her kids who move to another state. It's set up for people who are going to be in an office setting to communicate with people at another branch. You're meant to be in a well-lit environment where everything is pretty static.
Yeah.
That's not a studio, okay? That's the opposite of a studio. And so what you want is, if you can, to go in there and mess with those settings. And, you need to understand what these settings mean. But if your camera has settings that you can go in and adjust, you will often find that the default settings are not what you need. Mm-hmm. And, because a recording space and an office setting are very different things. So what you're going to want to do is, it may have like an auto ISO feature. And if you can go in and change that up and find an ISO setting that better fits your lighting, or if you can find something for your focal length or anything like that's really going to help you out, okay? Changing up your aperture and things like that. Your webcam might not be able to get that specific, but I can almost guarantee that if your webcam comes with dedicated software, someone has done a YouTube video on how to manipulate that to make it look better. Because that's the great thing about YouTube. There's a lot of people doing a lot of things on there and doing a lot of great tutorials. So check that out, because you can probably get your webcam to do a lot better, a much better job. And so then you can get away with spending $30 instead of $400.
Yes.
Just by watching a 10-minute YouTube video. And that's amazing. And those are the times we live in. Okay.
Yeah.
Information is practically free. In many cases, it is free. So learn how to use those settings. Play with it. Just experiment. Move some sliders around, click some buttons, see what it does. And if it suddenly starts looking way better, you did it right. You don't even have to know what you did. If you made it better, you did it right. Save those settings and go forward.
Yes, I love that. I love that. No, I think Al Trucker had a question. Let me see if I can find it. He says, for pre-recorded videos, is using a standalone camera a good idea? And I'm trying to make sure I understand the question standalone. And maybe what he's saying is instead of having a camera, and you can clarify, AL Trucker, if you're still here, maybe what he's asking is instead of being connected to the computer for pre-recorded videos, that you just use the camera and record it that way and then upload it to the computer and do your edits and stuff like that. Until he clarifies, we'll go with that. What do you think about that?
That's what I think he's asking, using something like a point and shoot camera, an SLR, a mirrorless camera, something like that. Actually, you'll get fantastic video quality if you do it that way. I would suggest investing in a decent mic to attach to your camera. Rode has some good ones. Deity makes some good mics. So just find a decent microphone that you can attach to your camera, and you'll get fantastic video quality that way. And then once you're done with the whole thing, you just take the SD card, pop it in your computer, download the video, and go into your editing software. If you've got a standalone camera, and you want to shoot, like some talking head videos, that's what I would recommend.
Oh, wow. That's good. Yeah. Man.
That's actually why I got the camera I got. Is like I didn't even buy this camera to do to do streaming. I had no intention of doing streaming in this space at all.
Wow.
It was Chris over there and hanging out in the chat right now who kind of peer pressured me into that. So I then had to buy like a capture card and an HDMI cable and all that to start, being guests on people's show. I bought which is I have the Panasonic Lumix G7. That I bought that specifically to record video independent of the computer.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. Man, well that was a good one. I did not expect that. And again, y'all, this is your moment. If you have some questions, please drop them in here and we'll take them as they come in. All right. So we got our studio set up. Is there any other equipment that we're missing out now? We've covered some things.
Yeah. So now we probably should talk about some microphones. We kind of touched on them a little bit. So if you're starting off, you basically got two different routes you can go as far as microphones. You can go with a USB mic or an XLR mic.
Yes.
And there's some considerations is, are you going to be the only person talking on this thing? If you're going to have multiple people in the studio, like, is there going to be a second person sitting with you? If that's the case, you kind of need to go the XLR route. And the reason is because your computer can only record one audio input source at a time. So if you have multiple people, and you have USB mics, you're going to have to connect each mic to a different computer. So you have to have one, and your co-host has to have a separate computer with a separate USB mic.
Yep.
And then you have to take both audio tracks. You have to copy one from one computer and put it onto another, which means now you got to take his recording and throw it onto a flash drive and physically put it into the other computer, or share the file somehow. No, don't do that. If you're going to have multiple people in the same room, go the XLR route. And what this is, your microphones don't connect through a USB port. They connect through the big round cable that has some little pins in it. that connects to the back of the microphone, and the microphone connects to a thing called an audio interface. And you'll need to buy an audio interface that has as many ports as you have people. They typically come in 1, 2, 4, 8, 12, and some of them even have more than that. But if you're going to have a couple of people, well, you obviously need one that has at least 2 ports. If you're going to have 3 or 4 people, you need one with 4. And each one of these, goes to a different microphone. So each person can have their own dedicated mic. And then that device connects to your computer with a USB cord, and it records into your software as individual audio tracks for each microphone. So I'm talking, Darante's talking, we've got 2 other people here in the room, they're all talking. It's getting really crowded because this is a really small space, but we're all sitting here on each other's lap. We each got our own microphone, and we have 4 separate audio tracks all going into one computer. So those are really the main considerations. Now, another consideration is if you really are looking at, being in this long term, I would suggest using an XLR microphone.
Yeah.
And the reason is because, over time things go out, and also you want to upgrade things. And every microphone has what's called a preamp. This is the thing that boosts the signal to, 'cause you have to have power in that microphone to make the thing work. It's an electronic device. And the thing that does this is this little thing called a preamp. And these preamps can eventually go out. They can also not really go out, but start to make noise. Not noise you can hear, but noise that is in the microphone signal. And if that happens, you got to fix it. Otherwise, you got this weird buzzing noise in your recording. If you have a USB mic, the preamp is built into the microphone. It is inside the body of the mic. And if that preamp ever goes out, you have to get rid of the entire microphone and buy a whole new one.
Yes.
If you have an audio interface, the preamp is in there. And so if it ever goes out, you only replace that. You don't replace the whole thing. Another consideration is that the preamp in an audio interface is typically a much better quality. It makes less noise, which all preamps make a certain amount of noise that is in the signal. You typically can't hear it, though some microphones, if you turn the gain way up, you can, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
But the preamp in an audio interface is typically much quieter and more robust. It's going to last a lot longer, which means you can use the thing for years or decades and it still runs fine. Whereas the preamp in some microphones has an issue once you get a few years old. And then the gain starts doing weird things, or you start getting a weird buzzing noise in it. And when that happens, you got a problem. You got to replace the mic.
Yeah.
Another thing to consider is that if you have a separate mic and preamp and you decide you want to upgrade something, you can just buy a microphone and upgrade that. And then later you can just buy your audio interface and upgrade that. So that's nice. And you also have better control. Like knobs that control the gain and also the volume of my headphones are not attached to the microphone.
Right.
They're down here on the audio interface, and I can adjust those. I can also see how strong the signal is. Like whenever I'm talking, there's a little meter that bounces up and down on my audio interface, and so I can see how strong my voice is coming across. And if it's getting up into the yellow or the red, I know that I'm either talking too loud, or my mic is too close, or my gain is too high and I'm starting to clip. And I can make adjustments on the fly. I don't have to wait until I look at the audio on the computer to find out that I screwed something up an hour ago. I can see it instantly, okay? Or if it's also too low, I can just reach down with my left hand without breaking my sentence. I can reach down and turn a knob and make those adjustments instantly. Whereas if you have a USB mic, that knob is on the microphone somewhere, and it's probably on the back, and you're going to have to reach around behind the thing, and you're fiddling with it, and that's making noise, and you don't know if you're turning it the right way or not because it's behind you, not in front, and it's a mess, okay? So those are some things to consider. Now, one of the particular things that USB mics have, in their favor is that you can get a USB mic for cheaper than you can get an XLR mic and audio interface. There's a Behringer audio interface you can get for, I want to say about 30 or 40 bucks. And then you can get a mic for about 15. Okay, so you're talking about maybe $45, $55, somewhere around there. And then you also have to have the XLR cable. That's probably another 10 bucks. So you're talking about, maybe $65, $75 at this point, somewhere in that area. Or you can get a USB mic for maybe 30 bucks. That's a big difference, maybe even cheaper.
Yeah.
There are some out there for like 10 or 20. The problem though is a $20 USB mic, it's probably not going to give you good sound quality, and it's probably not going to last very long before that preamp starts causing issues. Even some of the more expensive ones, like the Blue Yeti, I had mine, and after a few years, the volume was going up and down on it while I was recording.
Wow.
So I'd record a paragraph, and then I'd look at the thing and realize I had to delete that paragraph and redo it because the volume dropped way down.
Wow. And
I had to crank up the gain, and then it would suddenly jump way up halfway through, and I have to turn it down again. It becomes a pain. So those are some things to keep in mind. And those are problems I don't have anymore because I don't use that type of hardware. So I'm not going to say that one is better than another. What I'm going to say is, if you're going to go with a USB mic, I would get the Samson Q2U. It'll probably cost you about 60 or 65 bucks. And what's cool about this mic is it can do either. It has its own preamp, and you can plug it into your USB port.
Wow.
But if you get an audio interface later, you can then unplug that microphone and connect it to the audio interface with an XLR cable and use it as an XLR mic. It's dual purpose. It's an XLR awesome. And a USB. It's under 75 bucks, and it's really good quality. So that's kind of hard to beat. And then at a later date, you can upgrade to an even better mic. But yeah, that's a really good place to start. If you want a USB mic, get a Samson Q2U. And then if you want to go the XLR route later on down the road, then buy an audio interface and take that same microphone and connect it to there with an XLR cable.
Wow.
If you're going to start off with XLR, either because you've decided you want to do this long term and you like that idea, or you're going to have more than one person recording in the room, get yourself an audio interface that can, have multiple guests, and save some money on the mics by getting that Behringer XM85 for like 15 bucks a person, and go that route. And then later on down the road, you can upgrade to a nicer, more professional looking microphone. Yeah, for that, I would say use the Rode Pod mic. It's a dynamic microphone. It looks really nice. It's a pretty sweet mic. And if you want that, if like you have a more medium or higher pitched voice, and you want that real warm, deep, velvety sound that the Shure SM7B produces. Yeah. Get one of those little black foam windscreens and put it on. Whoa, okay, there's balloons. I have no idea why I've got balloons, but...
that's awesome.
Get the Rode Pod mic and get one of the foam windscreens for like $10 and put it over the microphone.
Wow.
It actually changes the sound of it. There's this guy, he has a YouTube channel. His name is Tom Buck. He actually did a side-by-side comparison where he got those two microphones and he had them mounted like side by side. And he recorded, like he basically just talked into both of them, and he like played the audio tracks one after another, and it sounded like incredibly similar. Like you really had to be wearing some quality headphones and listening for a difference to be able to pick it out. One is a $100 microphone, the other's a $400 microphone. So yeah. And then as far as mics go, I would not recommend spending more than $100 on a mic. Getting started, get a Behringer XM 8500 if you're going the XLR route, or the Samson Q2U if you want to have a USB mic and then eventually go to XLR. And if you want to upgrade later on, get something like the Rode Pod mic.
Ooh.
And yeah, and then to go along with these things, you're going to want something, some kind of microphone stand. I'm fond of the boom arms. It's a big, like, segmented thing. You can move it around. It's adjustable. I recommend, especially people who are energetic and they move around and they have to, move their mic stand to, relocate with them as they travel around the studio. Get one that does not have the external springs. Because if you adjust that while you're talking, occasionally one of those springs will go bing.
Yes.
And the sound you hear is bad enough. The sound that it picks up on that mic is horrendous. You will lose subscribers the first time that happens. People will yank their headphones off. They will stop the video and they will never come back. Okay. In that first video, I actually put a link on in there of a boom arm that is really good stuff. I would definitely check out something like that. It doesn't have to be that exact one, but look for a boom arm that does not have the external springs. Okay, it uses tension instead of springs.
That's good.
And then also get a shock mount. A shock mount is this thing you can see right here. It's a bracket that wraps around your microphone and it holds it. At the end, there's a separate piece that's attached to the boom arm. And the two sections, the part that's attached to the mic and the part that's attached to the boom arm, are not connected. It then has these little rubber band sort of things that go between them. So if you bump the thing, the boom arm and the outer ring of the shock mount moves, but that vibration does not travel into the microphone. It gets absorbed by those little bungee cords, okay?
Wow. And
that's the purpose of it, because if you bump it or you bump the table, you'll hear a boom that goes right into the microphone, okay? And you may not realize this, but like if you accidentally, kick the leg of your desk or you set something down, I mean, like, I've been sipping some bourbon the whole time, and when I set this thing down, like, it vibrates the table a little bit, but you don't hear it because I have things here to prevent that vibration from entering the microphone, because the only sound that I want entering my mic is the sound of my voice. Everything else should go away.
I like that. I like it. Oh man.
So that's how I want to do that.
Speaking of sound, so of course, when you're just doing your own pre-recorded videos or you're just streaming, you're going to upload, you don't, maybe headphones aren't as important. But if you're going to be doing interviews with other people or being a part of other people's broadcast, how important do headphones become at that moment? If you're going to be on a show with somebody or you're going to have someone else on your show, are headphones necessary, or can you just have your speakers going while you're in your show?
Headphones necessary in all occasions.
I love it. Yes.
Look. if you are streaming, if you are recording, if your voice is going in, any of these things, you need to hear what other people are going to hear.
Yes.
And you are not aware of that if you are not monitoring, okay? You should be monitoring your sound from like before you even hit record, before you go live. You need to know what you're going to sound like. And you need to know what you're going to sound like throughout the show, throughout the recording, okay? If you have a guest, they need to be wearing headphones as well. Because if you have speakers going, then the voice coming out of that computer is now going right back into the speakers and going right back into the stream. And you've got this really bad echo going around, okay? You don't want that. And more importantly, your listeners do not want that. They will turn off.
Yep.
They'll say, nope.
Yep.
You'll see things popping up in the chat. Hey, there's a really bad echo. You know where those echoes come from? From people who don't use headphones. That's where that echo's coming from. And even if it's just some cheap earbuds, get some headphones and get wired headphones.
Yes.
And the reason I say this is because the more USB devices you have connected to your computer, the worse.
Yep.
Because at any point, one of them can lose connection. Or another device that you had paired to your computer at some point that now your girlfriend happens to be using gets back into range, and all of a sudden your audio is going through her headphones because you hooked them up in the coffee shop the day before to show her like a funny cat video or something. And now she walked back into the house and suddenly you can't hear anything because your computer is sending your audio to her head. And now she's wondering who the hell these people are that are talking to her. And now she thinks she's hearing voices. Okay. No, don't confuse her. Don't make her think she's going crazy. All right. Yeah. Wired headphones, a wired microphone, plug that stuff in, leave it plugged in. Always monitor your audio quality. And something that is almost as important as the microphone are the headphones.
Yeah.
If you're going to go out and spend $100 on a mic, don't monitor your sound with, a thing of skull candy earbuds you picked up at a gas station for $12 while you were on a road trip. No. Get a thing of studio monitor headphones. That sounds expensive. Oh my God, studio monitor headphones. You can get some for like $30, $40. Okay. Studio monitor headphones are headphones that are acoustically neutral. Most, casual listening headphones, they have a lot of EQ built into them, and they're going to, they're mainly going to add a lot of bass to the sound to make your music sound better. And you don't want that because you want to know what you actually sound like. Yeah. Not, what you sound like if someone's listening to you on a set of Beats or something like that. No.
Right.
What do you actually sound like right now, right this second during the broadcast? You need to know that so that if adjustments need to be made, you can do that. If there's a sound somewhere that your mic is picking up, you need to know that exists so that you can fix that sound and get rid of it. Because maybe you forgot to turn off the dryer before you started recording and the laundry room is right over here. And, you need to know these things. So get a decent set of studio monitor headphones and put them on. It makes you look more professional because, people are like, oh, he's got these cool looking headphones. But it allows you to hear what's actually being recorded.
Wow.
And get the wired version and plug them in. And as far as wires go, look, when you start doing stuff like this, you're going to have a camera. Maybe you've got a teleprompter. You've got an audio interface. You've got all these cables coming in. You've got this microphone. You've got these headphones. There's a lot of cables, okay?
Yes.
that becomes a problem. And I know you've personally dealt with this.
Yep.
You're getting ready to start your show, and you realize, you've got, some other camera or your microphone's not picking up or something. You're trying to get all kind of stuff plugged in.
Yep.
Here's something those YouTube channels and stuff that are teaching you how to set stuff up are not going to tell you, and you need to know this. Buy a dock.
Ooh, yes.
Buy a dock that provides power. Plug it into the wall. Plug everything into that dock.
Yes.
And then you have one USB-C cable that connects that dock to your laptop.
Ooh,
when I need to come in here to do a live stream, I set my laptop down, I open it, I take one cable, I plug it into the power port on here, and I turn on my mouse. That's it. Everything's hooked up to that. I don't have to hook up a bunch of stuff. One cord. I plug in one cord. That's it. Everything runs to the dock.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't have, is this plugged in? Of course it's plugged in. It's always plugged in. I use gaffer tape to make sure it can't come unplugged. You cannot unplug anything from this dock unless you remove 2 pieces of gaffer tape. I don't have to worry. If my dog comes in here and bumps stuff, it cannot come unplugged. Everything is always plugged in. Man. So get a dock. That is important. Especially when you get caught up and you're coming in at the last minute, you go to get started. Oh my God, I can't go live because my camera won't pick up. What's wrong?
Yes.
No, do not do that.
Yes.
Buy a dock. Plug everything into that. Hook it to the wall. Plug it in.
That's
one
good.
Cable. That's it.
Man, that's good. All right. So we got our sound absorbing, our soundproofing. We've talked about our cameras. We've talked about our lighting. We've talked about headphones and microphones. Let me see. What have we? And now we've even talked about the importance of having a dock. I think last time we talked a little bit about the importance of understanding your USB ports, because some of them are 2.0 and some of them are 3.0. Mm-hmm. But I think this dock information is probably heavy. Is there any stone we haven't left that we haven't uncovered tonight?
Oh, let me think. So I was going to say software, but we actually talked about some of the software last time. And both stuff for Mac and for PC, depending on which platform you're using. Did we talk about chairs?
We did not talk about chairs. Let's talk about chairs.
Okay.
Yes.
Because this is one I see people actually buy something very specific, and then they look very uncomfortable. And that's gaming chairs.
Yes.
So, quick crash course on gaming chairs. Gaming chairs were made for people who wanted to build a car racing setup in their living room. And so they made these chairs that resemble the seats in a race car. Now, the purpose of a seat in a race car is to hold your body completely stationary in the event of a high-speed crash. And that design of chair is very good at that job once you get all the straps in place. But they're not very comfortable, especially not long term. Now, they will keep you perfectly rigid, especially if your shoulders are slightly forward, because you're supposed to be holding on to a steering wheel, which is why right over the shoulders, they have these little wings that kind of stick forward. Okay.
Yes.
And if you ever sit in one of those chairs, it kind of pushes your shoulders forward a bit. That's because you're meant to be playing a video game in which your hands are way out in front of you, holding onto a steering wheel when you're in that seat, because it's designed that way for people who are doing 200 miles an hour on a racetrack. So that if you get in a crash, it's wrapped around your body and you stay stationary and you don't flop around the inside of a car and injure yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you, but I have never witnessed a person be involved in a high-speed crash in a live stream. unless they were in a race car streaming, okay,
Right,
which I have
yes.
seen that. But most of us are not creating content while racing.
Right.
And if you've ever sat in one of those gaming chairs for any length of time, you know that despite the fact that they have 1,000,000 points of ergonomic adjustment, you feel slightly constrained and uncomfortable. And watch people who have those gaming chairs. They're constantly shifting around
Yes.
because they're not very comfortable. They're also really expensive, at least the good ones are. But you know what costs like half the price, is really comfortable, is quieter, which is a big thing, and is specifically designed to comfortably hold your butt in place for hours on end? Office chairs.
Yes.
That's their job. You don't need something that's designed to hold you in place during a crash, unless you expect a car to come through your wall, in which case that gaming chair is not going to help you anyway. Get an office chair. You'll save yourself at least $100. They're more comfortable. They look nicer. They don't have uncomfortable wings that are jabbing into your shoulders. They make
true.
less noise. They're better built, and on the whole. And you can actually go to stores and find them and sit in them and find the one you actually like.
Yes, absolutely.
Before you own it. Go to Office Depot and buy an office chair based on one that actually fits you.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
And then find every point of adjustment and spray it with a little WD-40. Otherwise, at some point, you're going to move around and people are going to hear, and you don't want that. Okay. Remember, The only noise should be the sound of your voice. WD-40 is important.
All right, man. Well, as we bring this to a close tonight and get ready to land this plane, I'd like for you to give us just final words. And of course, you always end it and let us know what you got going on over at Dragons and Genesis. But for those content creators who are watching this now and who will be watching this later, if you would spend a little bit of time speaking to them about building a relationship with their audience. Those first, once you do start getting a few viewers, you do start getting a few subscribers. What do you do to really build momentum in those relationships, and how do you actually establish that relationship? How do you move from just these random people who saw me on YouTube one day to they're now either part of your YouTube membership program, your Patreons, your Discord, or what may have you? So if you could talk to us a little bit about building a relationship with your audience and engaging them, and then close out by letting us know what you got going on over at Dragons and Genesis.
Yeah. So as far as building a relationship with your community, one of the ways you're going to do that, one of the most important ways, in my opinion, is answering questions. At some point, people are going to ask a question, especially if you're delivering the type of content that Darante and I am delivering. You're going to have people reach out to you at some point and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, or I don't understand this. Can you help me out? And if you come back and you provide them with good resources and a good heartfelt response, if you are taking time out of your day to speak to one person, that makes a difference. That makes a huge difference. Okay. And if you then talk about this, say, hey, the other day a listener had a concern about this certain thing, and this is a topic that maybe doesn't get enough attention, and so I want to talk about this. Well, this tells other people that not only are you approachable, but you see value in their own concerns and in their own lives. And in a time in which AI is rapidly flooding the content creation space, and there are entire podcast and YouTube channels that are just completely bot generated. The real value that you can bring is your own personality, your own humanity. And being able to do that and to engage in them on a personal level. that is something that cannot be replaced. And so that right there is one of the biggest ways to help build community. Another thing that you can do, though, is once you've produced some content, you've been doing this for several months, is look at other channels, other podcasts, look at other shows that have a similar interest, that cover similar topics, have similar audiences, and reach out to them, talk to them, see if you can go on their show, see if they would want to come on your show, and talk to them not as like a guest host dynamic, but as like-minded colleagues. And not only does that expose you to a whole new audience and can double or triple your viewership just based off a single episode, but it also gives your community, your members, access to a whole other show that they might not have already heard of. And that shows them that you care about them enough to say, hey, here's another person doing something similar to what I do, and I think you'll like them. This is like hosting a potluck. It's people sharing things. And going back to what I said earlier about, how you don't compete with people on here. I've been on shows where people might think that I would be in competition with them for audience membership, and that's not the case. I go on these shows, and some of my audience starts watching or listening to their shows on a regular basis, and some of their people also start listening to mine. It's not like some of my people left and went there or the other way around. No, we both benefit from it, and you need to be forming relationships like this within the content creators community. You need to become friends with people who are like-minded individuals so that you both can benefit off of what each of you has to offer in both personal experience and expertise, and also exposure to each other's audience members. And so those are really the two biggest things. It's just become personally invested in your audience, because these are people, these are human beings who are looking to you as a symbol of authority on whatever subject you're speaking on. And, if you're doing it right, they should trust you. And you should earn that trust. And you should continue to reinforce that trust by delivering on their on the basic promise you make that is unspoken, but just as powerful, that you are there for them, because that's what this is. It's us sharing a bit of ourselves with other people, and we have to do this in a meaningful way. Otherwise, what's the point? Just let a bot do it.
Yep.
And as far as what I'm doing, I'm mainly doing much of the same. I'm continuing to redo the Genesis episodes. So the first 14 episodes of the podcast are getting a complete overhaul. The audio is getting replaced. Each month, a new episode vanishes and gets replaced with a brand new version of that content. I believe... Now I'm trying to remember which one I just did. One of the Genesis episodes just recently, I think it was Cain and Abel, maybe? I think it was Cain and Abel, but I'm not positive. One of the episodes just got replaced. Brand new information. No, Tower of Babel. That one got replaced. Lots of cool stuff in there. You definitely want to check that out. That got replaced, and then I got some new information. I'm halfway done writing the episodes for Joseph. So tomorrow I'm going to be starting the script for the final Genesis episode that will go through about the last 7 chapters of the book of Genesis. And so then over the next few months, I'll be closing all of that out and and getting the rest of Genesis recorded. And while that's being recorded, I'm going to be doing all of the research required to do a gigantic, probably 2-part episode covering the Gospel of Mark. That's a doozy. I've got about a million different sources I'm juggling. The Homeric epics, which contributed a lot more to the story of Jesus than you probably realize. There's a lot of stuff going into this, and the project's actually one I've been working on for a while, but it goes through every single scene of Mark, and it shows its literary parallels to earlier and extremely popular literature that was available to the author of Mark. Every scene, every part of the story of Jesus' life as presented in the Gospel of Mark looks like it came from older literature. And I'm going through scene by scene by scene showing. Now, this doesn't mean this is where it came from, but it means we have something that looks suspiciously similar, and it is in literature that the gospel author would have known about. So yeah, it's really fun stuff. And some of those things, it is borrowed. Like there's actual phrasing that comes from older sources. Like there's stuff from the Odyssey that's in the Gospel of Mark, including like specific words that when you read them, you understand that the author is actually talking about something from the Odyssey. So yeah, all that's going in there. I've been working on this off and on for a couple of years now, but it's a lot of fun. So, and that's going to be kicking off episode 100 of my show. So that's going to be pretty cool.
Man, that is awesome. That is awesome. Well, again, Jason, thank you so much for being here with me tonight. I appreciate you. I'm going to drop you to the back while I close out the stream. Man, y'all, this was absolutely wonderful tonight. Thank you so much for being here with us. I am thinking about possibly making this a monthly conversation, talking more and more and sharing some tips about what it could possibly be like in this space with content creation, and then even just activism in this space of content creation, content strategy, quality of content, quantity of content, SEO stuff, how to get your title tags and descriptions and stuff set up. And I think there are a lot of people in the community who will have a lot of stuff to share in this regard. And we're going to keep rolling with it. Again, special thanks to everybody who's been here tonight. Special thanks to everybody who's given tonight. You are absolutely awesome. You're the reason that this community is growing the way that it is. You're the reason that big things are happening and small things are stopping. Big things popping, small things stopping, little things stopping. I don't know. You know how it goes. As a big friendly reminder, we have Brit City Weekends coming up. We're planning in a major way now. So make sure you be on the lookout for that link so you can sign up from wherever you are. And of course, we have Bible study with the next pastor this Wednesday night. Cannot wait to see you there. We're going to finish Leviticus if it kills me. We're going to get through this damn book if it kills me, and we're going to have a good time. I may fast forward through some of it because I'm ready to be through with it. But no. And of course, be back with us next Sunday for our Sunday sessions. I think that's all I have for now. I love y'all. Thank y'all for being a part of this wonderful community. And until next time, man, y'all keep rising and be the bridge. And let me get us something to close out to.
I finally found the agency to live in my authenticity. Ooh, I got my own autonomy. You could never bother me. Yes, I'm a fuck with the ball, yeah. I finally found the agency to live in my authenticity. Ooh, I got my own autonomy. You could never bother me. Yes, I'm a fuck with the ball.
Let me tell you how I know. I had to get up off the floor. I had to get it out the mud. I had to finally let it go. I know my mama told me so, but she could never really know that when a boy was getting older, that his mind was getting sober, yeah. But I'm getting closer now. I had a church, but I closed it down. Had to reverse the emotions. I had to apologize. Selling eternity, willing to die. I was just living a lie. Walking by faith and ignoring the sight. Better off rolling the dice. And what I'm saying is that I'm living and I've learned. I've given and I've earned enough for